the term liberal Christian has fallen out of favor. People that are part of the more liberal denominations typically call themselves progressive Christians now. And what it means to be a progressive Christian is a Christian, so somebody who's following the teachings of Christ, who believes in progressive political opinions, left-wing political opinions. And that's typically what is meant by the term. But a liberal Christian, the term's really fallen out of favor. What it used to mean to be a liberal Christian back in the 18th and the 19th century is a believer in freedom of thought. And as a universalist, I consider myself a liberal Christian in the sense the universalist meant it, because that term was very important to our ancestors. Universalists typically call themselves liberal Christians. And inside the universalist sense of the term, I am a liberal Christian. And I actually really kind of miss the word liberal. I'm from the South, so it's like I want to try to stay as far away from the term as I can. It's kind of a bad word. And just the word, it used to mean something very different than it does today, both in politics and in religion. But in religion, what it meant to be a liberal is to believe in freedom of thought, freedom of conscience. And I'm a liberal Christian in the sense I believe in freedom of conscience. And I would love to bring the word back, even though I think it's just fallen, it's been too tainted. But I'm a liberal Christian, as I just said before, in the sense that I believe that every Christian should agree upon basics, essential beliefs. But outside these basic essential beliefs, I think every Christian should have the freedom to interpret the Bible and interpret the tradition, have freedom of interpretation, freedom, primarily the Bible, which is the ultimate authority, and also the other authorities such as tradition, which is an authority. The Bible very clearly gives tradition and authority as well, though it is secondary to the Bible. And of course, one's own personal experiences with God. And they should have freedom to interpret that. And I am a liberal in the sense that I believe in those things. And I believe that Christians should be able to agree to disagree on a lot of things. I agree. I think that that is the most important thing. I think that even on very big deals like the book of Genesis, I'm going to get to my own opinions on Genesis, evolution, creation, order of creation, all that good stuff another time. But I think on that matter that there should be freedom of belief. And I think on a lot of matters there should be freedom of belief. I think the Moravian Church, though we don't typically call the Moravian Church liberal, I really think the Moravian Creed is spot on. The Moravian Creed goes like this: in essentials unity, in non-essentials liberty, in all things love. And to me, that's what it means to be a liberal Christian, in essentials. And to me, the ultimate creed of essentials is the Nicene Creed. Some liberals don't like to use creeds. Liberal Christians don't like to use creeds. The other definition of a liberal Christian is not requiring a creedal test to be a part of a church and membership. And I do think that the two aren't inherently mutually exclusive, but I do believe in some kind of creed, some kind of profession, because I'm talking about being a liberal Christian specifically from the Universalist tradition. But I was saying before, in essentials unity, I think like the deity of Christ, the resurrection, virgin birth, a few other things, the things mentioned inside the Nicene Creed and the Apostles' Creed, like a second coming of Christ, and by that, a literal second coming of Christ. A lot of people in the liberal churches, one of the progressive churches, want to deny a literal resurrection of Christ, a literal second coming. But as I was saying, in those things, I think we have to have unity, and I cannot fellowship with you if you deny them. But in secondary matters, I believe in freedom. Even if I vehemently disagree with you, I think that you're a Christian. And I do think that I hate denominations, but I have to confess that I think they're, at least at this age in church history, I do think in a later age perhaps, but even if you look back at the early church, Christians didn't fully ever agree upon everything. And I think that just the church has to agree to disagree. Like if you look back in the Bible, even in the New Testament, they were fighting about things. And if you look in the early church, there was disagreement on things, even pretty major things. I've said before, there were different opinions on hell in the early church. Some people believed in eternal damnation. Some people were universalists and other people were annihilationists, and they all coexisted. And I think that's a pretty big deal, hell and stuff. And a lot of other beliefs, they were debated. And in that sense, the sense of in essentials unity and non-essentials liberty, I'm a liberal, as I said before. And even on very major stuff, I think we have to have the freedom to debate. And I think probably the best denominations that continue to live up to this today are the Disciples of Christ and the Quakers. The Quakers, start with them, I guess. The Quakers believe very strongly in individual revelation. Quaker services vary from congregation to congregation, but every Quaker service involves, even though some of them have pastors and stuff, involves a moment of silence, the listening, as they call it, where they all get quiet, often in a circle, and they'll allow you to get up and say stuff. And in the Quaker faith, they have a lot of freedom. Like the Quakers, they have a lot of freedom. They believe the Bible's an authority, and they have a lot of freedom of interpretation, and that's actually a part of their service is what is God saying to you. And they don't always like get up and say it. Sometimes it's just like it's a private revelation for you. The other denomination I think does it really well is the Disciples of Christ and the Christian church tradition. I really admire the Restorationists, the Christian church tradition a lot. Actually, I've talked about them before in my videos why I like the Disciples of Christ. But in the Restorationist tradition, the Church of Christ, the Disciples of Christ, one of their essential beliefs is this. Actually, they have a few essential beliefs. They don't believe in creeds. They don't believe in any other label of affiliation besides calling yourself a Christian or other like New Testament terms. So they typically will just call themselves Christians. That's another way of rejecting creeds. And they believe in freedom of interpretation. And the Church of Christ is actually a very conservative denomination, but I really think the Disciples of Christ do it the best out of I think most of the denominations, and I really agree with the Disciples. I do call myself other words besides Christian, but I do think that like creeds in the church would be very minimalistic. But as I was saying, like in the Christian church tradition, a part of their belief is that every believer should have a freedom to interpret the Bible. Like this is a part of their belief, is that every believer should be able to read the Bible and come to his own conclusions about things, and that's a part of their church. And as I said before, they don't believe in calling yourself anything besides a Christian or other like New Testament terms for believers, and they don't believe in creeds. Well, they actually have very like minimalistic creeds, like the basics I was saying before. Every congregation kind of has like its own little creed and stuff, and that's honestly how I feel about it. Like I think that there should be like a very broad statement of faith, like the Nicene Creed or the Winchester Profession, in a church. And then I think the congregation should be able to elaborate a bit more on what they believe personally as a congregation. And I think within the congregation, there should be also room for freedom of belief. In that sense, I'm a liberal Christian. I believe, and of course, I understand if you don't want to use the word liberal Christian, it's been tainted over time. I usually won't call myself a liberal Christian. I will confess I'm actually guilty of using the term liberal Christian and progressive Christian synonymously. But I do admire the old word liberal Christian, and I don't know. I would like to see it. I would like to see it bring back a renaissance because I am a universalist, but I don't know. I have mixed feelings about fellowship. Like, of course, I know I kind of have the fellowship with non-universalists. There are no universalist churches in my area, but I do think that I am willing to fellowship with non-universalists. Like for me, that is not the end of the world. As long as as long as I'm able to be honest about what I am as a universalist, I don't mind. And that for me, I think, is really the most important thing is freedom of conscience. And I think freedom of conscience, freedom to, come to your own conclusions about things and to live by them is the most important thing of all. And I think, honestly, the worst thing you can be is a hypocrite. If you're going to be a drunk in the bar, be a drunk in the bar. If you're going to be a righteous man of God, be a righteous man of God. But whatever you do, don't be a hypocrite. And I think that's so important because if somebody has a bad conscience and has bad beliefs, I would rather them be honest and live like they are awful beliefs than them lie with their life and say, "Oh, I actually believe this." And a lot of people are, quite frankly, they are hypocrites. And of course, we're all guilty of the sin of hypocrisy. But you know what I mean? It's like a lot of people, they're so two-faced. It's like if you were to take away the food and the clothes on our back, they'd be murdering and stealing and doing whatever it takes to survive. They have no principles. And I don't say it as a stance of like superiority. It's an observable fact that a lot of people have no moral foundation. And I think the freedom to live by your moral foundation and what you believe is right is so important. And I think that's so true in religion. I would rather a fellow believer say to me what he honestly believes about something and I vehemently disagree with him than he lie to my face and try to pretend like he believes what I believe just not to upset me. I'd rather deal with a man who's honest about what he believes. And I've, of course, talked with people of all different sects. I've said before, I've been to most churches under the sun, and I'm still have a few more to visit. But um, sorry, cough. But I just think that freedom of conscience, freedom of belief is so important. And I think that for me, what would be like a successful life, like What I want to be able to say in front of Almighty God is this: Father, I try my best to live by the example you, of course, it would be talking to Christ. Christ, I try my best to live by the example you set for me, and I try my best to live a Christian life. Forgive me for not doing so. And please, I try my best to stick by what I believe is right. I won't be able to say something like that about him, and of course, I know I'll probably be terrified, at the judgment seat. But that's what I'm able to say. I want to be able to say I live with honor, that I live by what I thought was right. I live by the foundation that I believe you laid in my heart. And that's what I want to be able to say. I don't want to say that I didn't live by my principles. I didn't live by my conscience because I was afraid to. And I think that living by honor is really what makes a man, in particular. I'm not saying that women can't have honor, but I think, I think really what makes a man is really living with honor. Um, Dying on the hills you need to die on, living an honorable life. I think that's what really makes a man. And for me, not living with honor, I think is horrible. As I said before, I'd rather you be a drunk in the bar and be honest you're a drunk in the bar than try to live like you're, a righteous Christian on Sunday and then be a drunk the rest of the week. Um, but I don't know, a bit of a tangent, I guess. But as I was saying, I'm a liberal Christian in the sense that I believe in freedom of belief. That I believe that Christians should be able to read the scriptures, particularly the scriptures, pray with God, receive, what God speaks to them, and also, of course, study the traditions because tradition has authority as well, and come to their own conclusions about things as long as we agree upon basic beliefs. In that sense, I'm a liberal Christian. It's fine if you don't want to use the word liberal because, once again, it's been very tainted over the years. But in that sense, I am a liberal Christian, and I think that freedom of conscience is an immensely important thing. Well, y'all have a good day. God bless. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and Christ will conquer.